Intermittent fasting is often thrown around as some magical formula for fat loss, and a lot of people swear by it. Today, I want to look at what the most recent research on this topic has to say about it, as well as give you some anecdotes as I have tried it and leveraged it myself in the past, as well as some of my clients. And at the end, I want to give you some recommendations to make sure that you fully understand what it is and how to use it, should you so choose. What's good, YouTube? Coach John back again. I'm repping Beyond the Iron, where I drop weekly fitness content on this channel, so if you're interested in getting to your goals faster and enjoying the process along the way, hit that subscribe button. Also, any and all research that I do reference or use to pull points from and to back up the claims I'm making in this video will be listed at the bottom of the description, so you can check those out if you want some further educational reading. And I want to say quickly before we get started, fat loss does come down to fundamental things, 4 specifically that I've put together in a free case study video that you can check out after this one by clicking the link at the top of the description. So first, we're going to cover exactly what intermittent fasting is and how it's supposed to work. Intermittent fasting itself, that term, is really just a term that's been conjured up by whoever it is that wants to sell and market this idea of really just manipulating meal timing to you. Obviously, we know that fasting is nothing new, but when you say intermittent fasting, all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, yes, that's the thing for fat loss and muscle gain, right? Well, you know, people have been fasting for eons now, and it's just a marketable twist to really, again, what is just manipulating eating windows. So a great example is the most common form of intermittent fasting, or leveraging this technique, is by not eating or fasting for 16 hours and then having an 8-hour eating window. So instead of waking up at, let's say, 7 a.m. and then eating shortly after, all the way until maybe 7 p.m. when you get back home, have your last meal, which is obviously a 12-hour window, what you would do instead is maybe put it off until noon. That's when you have your first meal, and then you would finish at 7 p.m. So now your eating window is much smaller, and you essentially push back when you start eating the first meal. Now, there's obviously countless, endless variations of this. It's not necessarily black and white. I believe that that is just the beginner way to get started. Some people like to do the 20-hour fast, 4-hour eating window, and some people would also do what they now also marketably call OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, which is essentially intermittent fasting in itself, because you just fast for 20 hours and eat everything in the 1 hour that you have that one meal. So as you can see, there's plenty of different ways to go about it. And also, a more scientific term for fasting of this sort can also be called alternate day fasting, where they'll fast for 24 hours altogether, and then the following day they'll eat normally, fast again, and alternate back and forth that way. So there's just endless ways to do it, and that's all you need to know about that. Manipulating your eating in this way has been touted to be superior at losing fat, losing weight, increasing human growth hormone, testosterone, in other words, being able to either retain or even build muscle at a superior rate than other forms of dieting as well. And some other few benefits that it's been claimed to have is reducing brain fog and overall health, autophagy, however you say that, which is essentially cleaning up the body, detoxing, if you will, cleaning out damaged cells, and so on. So we're going to take a look at all of these things right now. All right, we're going to start off with fat loss, which is obviously the main reason people want to know, is intermittent fasting really superior? And a systematic review of 40 different studies on this topic has actually shown and stated as a conclusion in this systematic review that, in fact, though this is a very great tool for fat loss, okay, keyword is tool, it is unfortunately not superior to fat loss when achieving a calorie deficit in any other form. So if you recall, and if you've been watching me for a while, or any other science-based channel, if you will, or people just that know their shit, let's just say, you will know that a calorie deficit is required in order to lose fat. So if you don't achieve the calorie deficit, it actually doesn't matter what method you use, because if you fast and you need 2,000 calories to maintain your body weight, but in that 4-hour or 8-hour, 6-hour eating window, you eat 2,500 calories and you do it consistently over time, you are intermittent fasting and you are also getting fat as fuck. Also, it's been shown that intermittent fasting fasting doesn't actually improve body composition any more than other forms of dieting as well. So again, you may achieve that deficit with intermittent fasting, but it's not a superior way of achieving a caloric deficit because it's ultimately going to come down to preference and availability, schedule, and so on. But of course, we must emphasize the fact that, as the study suggests, and I would agree of course, that it is a very powerful tool, and we're going to discuss exactly how you can leverage this tool to see the best results. So next up, we're going to move into hunger, okay, and this is exactly how it ties in as a powerful tool. Now IF, okay, I'm going to say IF instead of intermittent fasting, has been shown to actually suppress hunger. The more you practice IF, the less hungry you become when fasting, and in fact eventually it's going to suppress your hunger, because I know a lot of people are a little bit skeptical when you even say the word fasting. People kind of freak out and they're thinking, I can't go X amount of time without eating, are you crazy? Well, the truth of the matter is, most people, if not everybody, the only reason they get hungry as often as they do, multiple times a day, is because they've trained their body to expect food multiple times throughout the day. So intermittent fasting, more so than just a physiological change it could have in terms of triggering hunger and suppressing it, it also doubles as a psychological benefit of understanding that the only reason that you get hungry is because you've wired your brain to get hungry that often, and so you can actually rewire your brain and delay that gratification, and it will benefit you in the long run. Obviously, this is very useful for anybody who has lots of cravings or anybody who's constantly hungry throughout the day. If you are trying to eat X amount of calories over 12 hours, you're not going to have enough calories to fill yourself up throughout 12 long hours, as opposed to doing it in 8, 6, 4, and so on. And also, I can attest to this myself when I do try to leverage manipulating my eating windows as part of my dieting regimen. I do realize that it holds my hunger off, and it's so much easier to hit my calories that day without feeling the need to crave and binge on something. I must also mention that it's helped plenty of my clients, as I also recommend it to them as at least something that they should try out. So if you can achieve a deficit doing intermittent fasting versus whatever other form of dieting, and you achieve less hunger with intermittent fasting, which means you're going to enjoy the process more and you're likely to stick to it more, which in return is going to produce the results even faster, then intermittent fasting, as you can see, is a powerful tool for that reason. I'll find myself often really looking towards intermittent fasting near the end of my cut when calories are getting very low, and it's very helpful. All right, now we're going to talk about muscle gain or retention. Is it actually superior to hold on to muscle when you're intermittent fasting? And the truth of the matter is that it isn't. It hasn't been conclusive that it's superior in muscle gain, though it has been shown that human growth hormone does raise slightly. I recently watched a video by Greg Doucette, okay, and he did mention it in a very good analogy, and that is HGH is like hiring more workers. So you've got more available people to help build, let's say, a house, but without sufficient protein that's constantly being ingested, or calories for that matter, you don't have resources or tools for them to build the house with. So extra human growth hormone is great, but it's not going to go to work in building or sustaining muscle if the sufficient resources aren't available, in this case being calories and, more importantly, protein. When it comes to this, if you really wanted to optimize retention and muscle gain, intermittent fasting may not be the best way to go, as it has been shown in a few studies that if you were to evenly space out a good amount of protein, in the study it was about 20 grams of protein, evenly spaced out, not too often but also not too infrequently, then that is actually ideal. So if you have evenly spaced, good amounts of protein constantly being fed to your body, that is going to be the best, as again, your body has the resources it needs to sustain and build that muscle. Now, what about autophagy or autophagy? Autophagy is what I'm going to call it, okay? What about autophagy and other benefits like the decreased brain fog that intermittent fasting could provide, or is supposedly touted to provide? Well, what I can say about the autophagy is that it does appear clear that after about 24 hours of fasting, autophagy does ramp up significantly. And again, autophagy is more so, in a layman term, cleaning out of damaged cells, repairing your body. Again, it could be looked at as a detox in a way, And yes, it does ramp up at about 24 hours into the fast. However, it's very important to note that autophagy is also ramped up when you're exercising vigorously. So it's not like it's one or the other. Remember, there's always two sides to the coin, and you might be thinking, well, why don't I just fast and work out? When that's fine, you can do that, and it may increase autophagy even further. But the issue is going to be that if you're trying to work out to improve performance and you're not fueling your body the resources, we're going to look back to the previous point where I mentioned how that could be detrimental in terms of actual increase in performance, muscle gain, and so forth. As for brain fog, there was a study actually that showed that in terms of depression, the mental benefits of intermittent fasting could actually help with depression in some cases, but it is worth noting that the Canadian Pediatric Society does not encourage intermittent fasting for adolescents or younger. So kids, teenagers probably won't get these benefits, or probably shouldn't even indulge in intermittent fasting at all. But I do want to throw in an anecdote. I have found myself to have a clearer mind whenever I am a little bit more fasted for the morning time. I find that I'm able to think clearly, and I do believe it's because your body doesn't have to constantly bring energy towards the digestive system, constantly digesting food. It's completely cleared up, and you can use all those resources for focusing on whatever it is you want to focus on. So what are my ultimate recommendations at the end here? First and foremost, I hope that you learned the in and outs of intermittent fasting here. Now, my recommendation is the following. If you're somebody who wants to lose fat and you have a lot of fat to lose, I think that intermittent fasting is something you should definitely give a try. In fact, I think everybody should at least give intermittent fasting a try at one point or another, and it can be however you want. I've personally fasted for 24 hours straight. I've personally tried the 16-8, all of these different types of things. And again, if you're somebody who does struggle with cravings or hunger issues and so forth, then I do recommend that you give it a shot, because I think that that will correct that constant hunger that you have, and it's going to increase your adherence over time if you do that. So I do think that this has a place, and again, I will recommend it to some of my clients that seem to have a hard time eating in a caloric deficit over a long period of time. So if you find that your calories are very low, you can leverage intermittent fasting the same way I do, for example, which isn't necessarily a structured 16/8, but more so skipping breakfast and pushing back my first meal, so that again, I have less time in the day automatically to hit those calories. And like I've mentioned, it has helped me out a ton in those days. So again, my recommendation is try it out. You can try however you want to start. It's probably not best to start extreme. Maybe start with a 16/8 or a 20-4 eating window. Start that and try it out for at least a week. See how you feel on it, because everybody's going to react differently to it, okay? However, just keep in mind, it's not superior to fat loss, and if you're going to do it and want to lose fat, you must track calories and make sure you know what your caloric intake is at the same time, because if not, it may as well just be an exercise in futility driven by a placebo or that marketing expert on Instagram. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If so, hit that like button, hit the dislike if you want to get roasted. Don't forget to share with your friends, comment below, and subscribe, because I'm seeing you in the next video. I'm out.